do the research for this show, we usually find topics that are, strictly informational, like a new scientific discovery or maybe an economic trend, something like that.
Or a piece of forgotten history.
Exactly. But today, we are holding a document that, well, it reads like a true crime thriller, to be honest. Yet it is entirely about your everyday survival.
It really is. It's intense.
Yeah, it's wild. We are going to explain why calling someone a monster is actually a fatal mistake. We're taking a document titled Blinded by the Monster, and we're going to use it to completely deconstruct the language we use to describe predators.
Because, as the text argues, our blind spots begin with the very vocabulary we use.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this. We want to give you a sharper, much more effective lens for reading the people around you, because society kind of conditions us to think that danger announces itself.
Oh, absolutely. We expect it to look overtly dangerous.
Yeah. But the reality presented in the source material shows how that expectation is not just wrong, it's an active vulnerability, one that's being exploited constantly.
It forces a total reevaluation of how you perceive the people you interact with every single day.
So let's start with the semantics of that specific word, monster. Because when a high-profile predator is finally unmasked, the immediate public backlash is just flooded with words like monster, or fiend, or animal.
It's the default reaction in every news cycle, yeah.
It really is. But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. Calling these people monsters feels, well, emotionally satisfying. And honestly, it feels entirely justified given the heinous nature of their action.
Oh, I totally get that. It is completely natural.
Right. So why is this document arguing that using that specific word is an actual threat to our survival? I mean, shouldn't we call out evil for what it is?
This raises an important question. You see, it provides psychological comfort to distance ourselves, to label perpetrators as something totally inhuman. But the core thesis of this text is that the term monster creates a false us versus them dichotomy.
A false dichotomy. How so?
Well, think about what the word monster actually conjures in your mind.
Right, like a literal movie monster.
Right, exactly. It paints a picture of a creature that is obviously villainous, operating under a completely alien set of behavioral rules.
It makes us believe that a predator is someone you could just, spot from a mile away.
Right, because they're supposedly so fundamentally different from us, which is completely untrue. They think and act exactly like us.
So it's like we're standing at the front door looking out for a cartoon villain with a twirling mustache, completely ignoring the well-dressed guy offering to help us fix the lock.
That is the perfect analogy, yes. We are so busy scanning the horizon for a grotesque caricature of evil that we just leave the front door wide open.
Wow. We leave it open for the actual threat.
And for the listener, understanding this dynamic is so crucial. This misunderstanding is exactly what gives predators the space to hide and manipulate you. When you expect danger to look like a monster, you inherently let your guard down around anyone who seems, normal or helpful.
It creates a massive cognitive blind spot.
Precisely. They leverage the exact same human instincts and social dynamics that we all rely on every single day.
Okay, so if we aren't looking for a grotesque creature, we have to look at the camouflage they are actually wearing. And according to the text, that camouflage is, well, charm.
It is their most effective weapon, by far.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The source material doesn't just deal in theory here. It brings out historical, high-profile examples to prove just how devastatingly effective this camouflage is.
Because these people aren't skulking in dark alleys.
No, not at all. They're shaking hands at school gates. They're leading charities. A text brings up Ted Bundy, which, is the classic historical example.
Everyone knows he was a serial killer, but they forget the cover he had.
Right. The text focuses on his cover. I mean, he was a law student. He's involved in local politics. He even volunteered at a suicide prevention hotline, which is just chilling.
It's incredibly dark.
But the detail in the text that absolutely stopped me in my tracks was that even after his horrific crimes came to light, even after the trial, Bundy received love letters in prison.
Yeah, that always shocks people.
How does the psychology of that even work? How does someone see a convicted killer and still fall for the charm?
It comes down to a concept called cognitive dissonance.
Cognitive dissonance, okay.
Yeah. When people are presented with two contradictory pieces of information, like the image of a handsome, articulate, helpful law student versus the reality of a brutal killer, The human brain just struggles to reconcile them.
So their brains just sort of glitch out.
Basically, yeah. For many, the charm was so deeply ingrained, the persona was so convincing that their brains simply rejected the reality of his crimes. The charm was a literal psychological weapon.
Wow. And the text also mentions Jimmy Savile in the UK, right?
Yes, a prime example of manipulating institutions.
He used his massive celebrity status and all this extensive charitable work to mask his predatory behavior for decades. I mean, he raised millions for hospitals and was even knighted.
He used the very institutions he was helping as a literal shield against accusations.
Which is terrifying.
What's fascinating here is how this applies to Rodney Alcala, the so-called dating game killer.
Oh man, this part of the document was just wild.
It really is. Back in 1978, while he was in the middle of a killing spree, he actually appeared as a contestant on the national television show The Dating Game.
I still struggle to wrap my head around this. A serial killer? Sitting under studio lights? Competing for a date on national television? I mean, how exactly did he manipulate the producers?
It's a great question.
These are people whose entire job is to screen contestants and read personalities, right?
Yeah, and he weaponized what's called the halo effect.
The halo effect. I've heard of that, but what is it exactly in this context?
It's a cognitive bias where our overall positive impression of someone influences how we feel and think about their character. Alcala was confident, he had a great smile, he was witty, and he really leaned into that 70s aesthetic.
Right, he had that whole vibe going.
Exactly. He didn't even try to hide his intense quirks. He just framed them as being edgy or mysterious, which, was highly appealing for a TV show.
So he played the part perfectly.
He won the date because he understood exactly what the producers, the audience, and the contestant were looking for, and he flawlessly performed that role. This proves predators use charm to deceive not just individuals, but entire audiences.
It wasn't just him manipulating one person in a dark room. He fooled a network screening process, a host, and millions of viewers watching at home.
The charm is a highly refined, deliberate tool.
But, if Alcala could fool network producers who have budgets to scrutinize people, it makes you wonder how vulnerable our local everyday institutions are.
Oh, absolutely.
Places with zero security budgets, community centers, youth groups, volunteer organizations. Which leads right into what the text calls the ecology of predators, right?
Yes, moving from how they act to where they position themselves.
Exactly, the mechanics of where they put themselves.
The document uses a very grounding analogy for this. It asks, why do car thieves hang around car parking garages? Or why do pickpockets target crowded tourist squares?
Because that's where the cars and the wallets are.
Precisely. Access and opportunity. Predators apply the exact same logic. They position themselves in environments where they have unhindered access to vulnerable targets.
But wait, society fundamentally views people in these roles like teachers, priests, coaches, youth volunteers as inherently good.
Right, that's the whole point of those roles.
Yeah, they exist to care for people. So how do we reconcile that fundamental societal belief with this predatory strategy? I mean, are we supposed to just view everyone who wants to help out with suspicion?
It's a fair point, but it's vital to understand the difference between the role itself and the person occupying it. Infiltrating trusted spaces is a calculated predatory strategy, not a reflection of goodness.
Okay, I see.
They know that society is conditioned to lower its guard around figures of authority. If we connect this to the bigger picture, predators don't thrive despite societal norms. They thrive because of them.
They don't just groom a victim, they groom the entire environment.
Exactly. They make themselves indispensable.
Explain how that works in practice, grooming an environment.
Well, they're the first to volunteer to lock up the building, the one who always offers to drive people home, the one who takes on the extra shifts that nobody else wants to do.
So they build up this massive reservoir of goodwill.
Right. With the parents, the bosses, the coworkers. So by the time they make a move on a target, the community is already primed to defend them.
Because their first reaction is, not him, he's the most dedicated guy we have.
Exactly. The role itself acts as a shield.
They use our own gratitude against us. Which, man, brings us right back to why the word monster is so damaging.
It blinds us entirely.
Yeah. If we expect a predator to act like a social outcast, we are completely blind to this calculated positioning. We're looking for the creepy guy lurking in the corner, when in reality, they're actively striving to be the most trusted person in the room.
They want the keys to the building.
So what does this all mean? Having dismantled the monster myth and exposed this camouflage and positioning, how do we use this knowledge to fight back?
The natural final step is application.
Right. How do you, the listener, take this unsettling information and actually use it in your everyday life?
The primary takeaway the text offers is a complete shift in perspective. You have to stop looking for what is visually fearful and start paying very close attention to what is familiar.
Because the greatest weapon of a predator is familiarity, not fear.
Exactly. And to spot them, humans are hardwired to pick up on incongruences. We have to reclaim our intuition.
But wait, how do I know if my gut feeling is, a legitimate biological warning system, or if I'm just being paranoid based on someone's awkwardness?
Yeah.
We all know people who are socially awkward but completely harmless.
That is the crucial distinction. A gut feeling isn't magic. It is your limbic system at work.
The limbic system, right.
Yeah, it's the part of your brain involved in behavioral and emotional responses, particularly when it comes to survival. It processes information vastly faster than your prefrontal cortex can attach words or logic to it.
So it's picking up on things I'm not even consciously registering yet.
Exactly. When you feel that sudden unease, your brain is engaging in something called thin slicing, finding patterns based on narrow windows of experience.
What kind of things is it picking up on, though?
Incongruences. The text emphasizes looking for a mismatch between the persona being projected and the underlying behavior.
Like microexpressions.
Yes, microexpressions that don't match the tone of voice. Or the person whose smile is perfectly bright, but their eyes are just entirely flat and cold.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean, the overly smooth operator.
Right. It's recognizing when someone's kindness feels performative, as if they are acting out what they think a nice person should do, rather than just actually being nice.
The person who's trying just a little too hard to solve problems you didn't ask them to solve.
Precisely. And the listener is urged never to dismiss their own unease as mere paranoia. If someone's behavior doesn't align with their projected image, trust that instinct.
I want to push this further and apply it to the professional sphere because the text explicitly calls out high-stakes fields.
It does, yes. Security, law enforcement.
Right. For people working in close protection or corporate security, how does this knowledge change the game? Because they can't just operate on a gut feeling, right?
Yeah.
They need actionable frameworks.
For professionals, they must move beyond superficial assessments. As we saw with the historical examples, a background check only tells you if someone has been caught. It doesn't tell you if they are dangerous.
So what does behavioral analysis actually look like in that context?
It looks like baseline profiling. Security professionals are trained to establish a baseline of normal behavior for a specific environment, and then they meticulously hunt for deviations.
Looking for warning signs early on.
Exactly. They are looking for the need to charm. If a new contractor at a high-security facility is spending an inordinate amount of time trying to flatter the security guards or bringing them gifts, a trained professional doesn't see a nice guy.
What do they see?
They see someone attempting to compromise the access controls.
Wow. They're evaluating the motive behind the behavior, not just the behavior itself.
They ask, why is this person trying so hard to bypass the normal professional friction of this environment?
Right.
They prioritize vigilance over politeness, turning this knowledge into a proactive tool for prevention.
Instead of just reacting after a crisis occurs.
Exactly.
This has been a heavy but incredibly necessary deep dive. To briefly recap the journey we've taken today, we set out to understand why the language we use around predators matters.
And it matters immensely.
We have seen that we must protect ourselves not by demonizing these individuals as monstrous aberrations, but by recognizing their all-too-human calculations.
Right, they rely on our cognitive blind spots.
They rely on the halo effect, they groom our environments, and they count on us looking for monsters in the shadows while they operate right in the spotlight.
The text tells us that predators thrive on our societal rules of trust, authority, and appearance. It tells us not to ignore our gut feelings, that internal alarm bell.
Yeah.
But consider this. How often do we purposefully silence our own survival instincts simply because we are afraid of being perceived as rude or impolite?
That is a great point.
If predators use our social norms as a weapon, perhaps our modern obsession with politeness is the very lock they are picking.
We are so afraid of offending someone that we manually override our own biological threat detection system. That is a thought that is going to stay with me for a very long time. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It was a pleasure.
To everyone listening, stay curious, question the Image People Project, and above all, never apologize for trusting your instincts. We'll catch you on the next one.